Hello again, everybody. Great to have you along for yet another edition of Journey Through Sports and Life as we approach the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. That's right. It's coming up here in the summer of 24, and we're most excited about it. Of course, we're really excited about it because it's going to be right here in the great state of Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth, and the Texas Rangers, the host this year. First time it's been there since, it's hard to believe, but almost 30 years ago, 1995. And I remember one of the greats in Major League Baseball, Mickey Mantle, was there. I remember getting my picture taken in the dugout. That was one of the highlights in my career. There's Mickey Mantle. I was number 7 as a kid growing up. Always had to be number 7 like Mickey. Way too much information right now because we've got yet another great when you talk about Major League Baseball players with us today. But first of all, we say hello to Marjorie and Marnie. Hello, girls. How are you?
Yeah, great to be here. I'm really excited about our guest today.
Me too.
Well, it is the baseball season, so we got to stay with the flow, as they say, and talk about those crazy Texas Rangers, the defending world champion Texas Rangers. And of course, it took 51 years for it to happen, but we're delighted that they were the reigning world champs. But we're really excited about having the All-Star game here, and we're really overly excited about having a fellow by the name of Bobby Witt with us. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, Scott. I'm actually up in Boston. I'm getting ready to go watch the Red Sox play the Royals tonight.
Well, the reason you're playing or up there with watching the Royals is because somebody by the name of Bobby Witt Jr. happens to be a pretty impressive ball player with that team, huh? What is that like to have your son follow in your footsteps? I mean, my gosh, you've got to be so proud.
Yeah, we are. I mean, as a family, it's been an incredible journey so far, and just be able to watch him and what he's accomplished from high school and into the minors. And, I can't believe it's already his 3rd year in the major leagues, but it's been a lot of fun, and a lot of people have asked us how things have got to this point and all that. And I always tell them, I believe it's the family and how you raise them and bring them up, but it also takes a village, and we've got a good group around him, a good support group. And so far things have been going really well for him.
Well, I tell you what, go look in the mirror, Bobby. Yeah, you and your wife have a lot to do with that. It's incredible. And I just was looking at some of the statistics, and I saw this. I guess it was just yesterday that Bobby Witt Jr., your son, is the first player in Major League Baseball history to hit 65 home runs, 26 career triples, have stolen 101 bases, and done so in his first 400 games, which was just this last week. And just in this last week, he had 400 career games in his career, and he's the first player to do that. That's incredible. Talk about an offensive powerhouse.
He's been blessed. He has power and speed. So I think when you have those two elements and you bring those two things to the game, it creates excitement. And I think that's what he likes to do when he gets on the field. He likes to go out there and, if he's in a situation where he has an opportunity to steal a base, he'll try that. If it's later in the game and they need a 2 or 3 run homer, he's trying to do that too. So that's one of the things that I think brings a lot of attention to his game right now.
When I saw that statistic, and I've got 2 quick questions here, okay, Marnie, just to follow Marjorie and follow up, and then I want to get you guys in here. You're talking about your son and being the great powerhouse he is and all the home runs that he's got so far. And I think he's got something like 15 already this year. Mm-hmm. That's incredible. And here we are just at the All-Star break. But you were the first pitcher in Texas Rangers baseball history to hit a home run in a game you were pitching. Do you remember that? And when I saw that statistic about your son, I said, wait a minute. I think Bobby was the one that is that not right?
That's true, Scott. Yeah, it was
That's what I thought.
Well, we were in interleague play 1997, right? And it was the first year of that. So now you got to remember that pitchers have not hit for 25 years. The last time the pitchers hit was in 1972, and then they initiated the DH. So we were taking BP and getting ready for it. We were in Dodger Stadium, and I just happened to, it was one of those deals where I started my swing early because I didn't want to be late, and made pretty good contact, and it went out, and it was off Ishmael Valdez, and it happened to be the first home run in interleague play. And, it was really cool because we won the game. I pitched really well that night, and then added on top of it, I picked up a home run.
That's great stuff. Well, jump on, girls. Say hello to Bobby and go for it.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that too. That must have been a big thrill, but I also want to ask you, is your Did you intentionally work your son as an infielder rather than a pitcher? How did that all play out?
That's a great question. And a lot of people ask, they said, why not pitching? Well, he did both. He did do both. And in high school, he did not want to give up his ability to play a position every day. So when you're starting sometimes, Tuesday and Friday, I believe the high school game. So he wanted to make sure that he was able to continue doing the shortstop thing. So he was technically the closer. And that's what he did when he was younger. He threw enough to where he would get in there late in the games and come in and do that type of stuff. He liked that because the adrenaline rush and where it put him at the end of the game, and everything was on the line there. But he did have that as a fallback. And that's something that we always talked about. I told him, I said, if you can't hit that slider or, that fastball is too much, you always got a fallback plan. So that was something that, we joked about a little bit, but he was fortunate enough to get off to a good start, and the hitting was something that has come really well for him.
Well, pitching, must be just such a mental and just such my father was a pitcher in baseball. He never went on to the majors, but he went on to be a major league dentist. But but how long, for example, did it take you to get over that close, perfect, that no hitter that later really should have been a no hitter?
That was in Oakland, 1994, and that was one of those games where I got over it. I think once I officially stopped calling the umpire some things that maybe I shouldn't have called him, and was close to getting thrown out that day. That's what he told me. He goes, "You keep it up. I'm getting ready to throw you out." I said, "Yeah, that's great. Not only did you miss the call, now you want to try to throw me out of the game."
Right.
But here's the thing. Honestly, I mean, it was one of those games. It was probably one of the best games I've ever threw. 9 innings, no 1 hit, no walks, 14 strikeouts. We won the game 4-0. Against a great opposing pitcher, David Cohn. He was actually pitching for the Royals at the time. But that was one of those games where you could kind of feel what was going on. I mean, through the 5th inning, I think there was no hits. And so Greg Gagne push bunted on me towards first, and Troy Neal was the first baseman. He picked it up and turned through it to me. My foot hit, and then his foot hit. And they actually showed the game during the COVID year. They were putting a lot of these games on and things like that. And to this day, if we had the replay, he would have been called out. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But the guy, the umpire is a human. He missed the call, and obviously I was upset about it. But I continued on, and I just said to myself, okay, I'm going to show you that you missed this call, because I'm not going to. I mean, mentally, I was in a pretty good zone that day. I mean, everything was we were just working together, the catcher and myself. Scott Heeman was catching, and it's hard to describe when you get into that area where he just puts down the target. I see the glove, and it was there. It was awesome. And so I thought to myself, I said, what a better way to show him that he was wrong than continue to do what you're doing and finish this thing with no more hits. So that was the case, and finished it up. But yeah, it was like I said, I know that there was a kid not too long ago in Detroit that kind of went through the same thing, Galarraga, where they actually missed the call, and it was the same thing now. If we had the replay back then, I mean, there's a lot of things that would have been different, right?
Yeah.
But that was the game. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bobby, how did you start playing baseball? What is your inspiration?
I grew up in Massachusetts, and I did not play hockey, and a lot of the guys that I grew up with were good hockey players, football and baseball. But I just started out with Little League, kind of like everybody else, and really loved playing the game. And I remember one thing that my dad and we would go out in the street, and it was in a suburban neighborhood in Canton where I grew up, and we would go out and play catch, and I'd always get them to keep backing up and throwing and throwing and throwing. And I think that's where probably a lot of my arm strength came from. And I didn't realize it. I didn't know. And come to find out, that's what people call long tossing. And this was something that I felt like probably enhanced my ability to throw the baseball hard.
And about how old were you when you started doing that?
I would say probably 9, 10, somewhere in that range. And now there's so many different things these young kids are doing with the training and all that. But that was just good old fashioned. Let's go play catch and see how far I can throw it and stay there until, maybe it doesn't feel good. And
when did you realize that your son had the potential to follow in your footsteps and actually play in the majors?
Now that's, as far as the majors, that's something that I didn't know. I knew that he was a little bit different from all the other kids, and I coached him up until he was 12, and just doing some of the things we would do, and we'd go out and work and we'd go out in the side yard, I'd hit him ground balls, and I'd be out there hitting him ground balls, and I felt like that was good, man. We've been out here for about an hour or something, just me and you hitting ground balls. He said, let's go. He goes, no, let's hit me some more. He was asking me to hit him more. So then I looked at him and I went, you know what, he likes this. This is something he really likes. And then, he was always a fast twitch kid. In football, he was playing wide receiver and that type of thing. And then, with baseball, he started, with the hitting and all that, the eye hand, that type of thing really came into play at an early age. I could see him making contact a lot more than some of the other kids. And then he was always smaller. And until he hit a growth spurt, probably going into his, until his freshman year, he hit a growth spurt. And I think he grew about 7 inches one summer, but he was a little guy. And then all of a sudden he just kind of sprouted up there.
Wow. Yeah, you probably had to keep buying him new clothes every 2 weeks.
Yeah, my wife, she was always complaining about that. Yeah, she was like, I got to go back and, keep getting him new shoes, new pants.
Yeah, so he's 6'1", right?
He's about that. Yeah, probably, they put their spikes on. They want to give it an extra inch. So he'll say he's 6'2".
And you? What
he's actually taller than me, and he makes it known all the time, especially when we're taking family photos and he's beside me. and he's always making sure that he knows that I'm a little bit short. I just said that's old age, man. I'm shrinking.
You just got to tell him to take the lifts out of his shoes when you guys stand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did the two of you do the same things you did with your dad early on, going to the, throw and then step back, or had everything changed in how baseball players developed?
Yeah, it's kind of changed. It was a lot more, like now there's a lot more focus on the summer baseball. It's crazy how much summer baseball where it's gotten to. When I was a kid growing up, we did Little League. We had our all-star team, and that was it. And then you'd shut it down and go enjoy your summer with your family, do whatever, go to a lake, swimming, or whatever it might be. And then the football season would roll around. And then when you get into high school, you played American Legion. And there might have been an all-star team for that. But outside of that, now there's so many different travel ball teams. Kids are going out playing for a couple teams, and they're doing stuff all over, all over the country. He was fortunate to do that. He played an Under Armour All-American game in Chicago at Wrigley Field. Then he went out to San Diego and played in the perfect game, and that was at Petco Park. And then he played on Team USA. It's 18U down in Panama. And so there was things that he's done and traveled all over doing this, which I think has really helped him prepare himself for when they got to when these kids sign and they get into the minor leagues. Because that first, you get on a bus, you start traveling, and you think this is what you want to do, and you feel like, oh, I can't wait, this is great. And then all of a sudden you're playing from people from all over the world. The Latin America, Asia. There's players that, his first roommate was from the Netherlands. And then his first roommate in instructional league with the Royals was from the Dominican Republic. So, this was a growing up period in those type of things. But I think that traveling and all that, it did help him prepare for this.
What do you think about come Monday night? My gosh, your son is going back in Arlington, which I'm sure you took him to a lot of Ranger games when he was growing up. For Pete's sake, here he's going to be in the home run hitting contest at the All-Star game. It doesn't get much better than that. You got to be so proud.
I know. That'd be so much fun to watch.
It's honestly, this whole journey that he's been on so far, it's one of those things where I just kind of get taken back, and it's surreal. But this thing is the one that's really got me kind of like going, wow. My wife and I were in the room last night here in the hotel, and there was a commercial for the Derby that came on, and I looked at her and I go, do you believe our kid's going to be in this thing, and it was one of those things where I was just like, wow, this is crazy. So I'm excited for him. He did a home run derby when he was in high school. And it was at the Washington National Ballpark in 2018. And he actually won it, which was crazy because he was the littlest guy there. But this one here, being at home, having the family in the stands, his sisters, his nephews, nieces, I mean, that's going to be really exciting. And my son-in-law, and Scott, Jeff Russell, it's
Right.
James Russell, Jeff's oldest son. He'll be throwing to him. So yeah, he's going to be
really?
throwing. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So
that's
going to be
fantastic.
really cool too. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool.
So it's a
Very
big
cool.
family affair. We're keeping it all in the family.
It sure is. Marnie, jump in here.
Well, all right. So how do you think that the competition is on baseball teams compared to when you were playing? So when you go out there and you watch your son and the teams, like, are there noticeable differences in competition?
Well, I would say I'm an older school guy, and so, we have the analytics and all the measurables and things as far as the exit velo and things like that. And a lot of that stuff wasn't tracked when I was playing, but now, and I the guys that I played with, they get, I don't think anybody's throwing harder velocity, but I do believe there's more guys throwing harder. When they open up the bullpen to bring these guys in now, they're anywhere from, all of them are, 95 to 100. And they all got, great rise in the fastball, and they're throwing sweepers and sliders and things, and all these different, not really different pitches, but they really work on the shape of the pitch, trying to make it more and more difficult for the hitters. And for me, back when we were doing that, we were coming out and we had a slider, a fastball, change up, and we really didn't, we kind of let our eyes tell us how it was doing. Or at the end of the day, you let the hitter, because if he's not obviously hitting it, it's good. If he's, if they're going over the fence, it's not too good. But I think though, overall, everybody says the athletes are, getting bigger, stronger, faster, and that type of stuff. I have a tendency to agree with that as well.
So how does a kid from Massachusetts end up at OU instead of at Arizona State? No, I'm kidding. My alma mater.
Well, I was,
yeah.
She does that every week.
I would imagine you were pretty homesick. Your son took a different route because he committed to Oklahoma, and then he ended up going straight into, signing with the organization. But yeah,
right.
How did that happen?
Well, I verbally committed to the University of Maine. And the reason why was there was a great coach there, John Winkins. And this was back when there was only 8 regions throughout the country going into postseason for college baseball. So the Northeast region was being dominated by the University of Maine. So they would win their region and they would go to the College World Series. So I recognized that, and I knew they had a good program, and that was the place that you wanted to go if you had any talent at all in the New England area. So that was where I committed to verbally. And then I ended up getting a letter in the mail. It was a few weeks before Easter from the University of Oklahoma. And the one thing I knew about them was they ran the wishbone in football, because my high school,
Everybody knew that about it.
Yeah, we ran that as well. So I was very infatuated with always watching them, how they ran it, and how they perfected it. And I remember I remember watching some games on a Saturday afternoon, and that's what I knew about Oklahoma. And so I got this letter, and I told my dad, I said, look what I just got. And I had, at the time, I believe the NCAA allowed 5 visits. And I think I only utilized 3 of them. So I had a couple left. So I said, I'm going to take a trip out there. And he goes, really? You really want? I said, yeah, I'm going to go out there and see what it's all about. It's, and see what they're doing. So I went out there. It was Easter weekend. And I remember leaving Massachusetts. And at that time, it can still be pretty chill, pretty cold, and, really not great weather in Mass. And so I went out there. It was probably 40 something degrees. And I got out there and it was 75. They happened to be playing Oklahoma State, their big rival. And they just had a brand new facility put in. And it was incredible. I was just in awe of what I was seeing. And then I sat down and talked to the coaches, Coach Seymour, Stan Meek, and they kind of told me about the program and, how I would develop, what they would work on, and those type of things. And I really started, having a lot of interest at that time. And then I said, my dad's a firefighter. He works 2 jobs. Maine's taking care of me on this thing. They're going to give me a full ride. If you guys can match that, I'll think about it. And they never saw me play. They went by word of mouth from a guy that worked for the Major League Scouting Bureau. And so they would call him every year to see. It was, there's no social media. So they would call him and say, hey, who is the guys in the area in New England that you would recommend? And he said, there's this Witt kid from Canton that's throwing pretty good. I've seen him. Maybe you might have some interest in him. So that's how they got the name. And then they ended up following up with the letter and that. And so I told Coach Seymour if he was able to come up with, they offered me 75% right there without even seeing me. And so I said, if you can get to the regular, if you can give me 100%, I might think about it. So they called me. I left on Sunday. They called on Monday and told me that they had this was going to thought about it for about, I don't know, probably 48 hours. My dad, my mom, we talked about it, and they were like, you really going to go out there? And I said, I think I like it. I think I want to give this thing a shot. So, and then I ended up going out there, and that's how it happened.
Wow. Because you answered my next question on how they found you. But now I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on, would you have been ready to go into the minors? I mean, did you anticipate your son would have gone to college first? I mean, what's the difference as a father who experienced it one way and seeing a son experience another in getting to the majors through the college route or through the minors? And you both got to the majors very fast after having been drafted.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was drafted out of high school in the 7th round by the Cincinnati Reds, and I wanted to go right away and go play. But my dad, we talked about it, and he had different thoughts as far as what I thought. And I was ready to go. I got drafted the same day I graduated high school. The scout came by, and I wanted to just, jump in the car with him and say, take me to. I was going to go to Billings, Montana. That's where I was going if I signed with the Reds and rookie ball. And I thought mentally I was ready. I felt like this is what I wanted to do my whole life, but I just didn't know if this was. You think it's going to work out. You don't know injury, anything like that. But it is 2 different paths. My son, this is something that he wanted to do ever since he was younger. And obviously being in the position where he was drafted, the financially, the money was very, very good. And his thought process was that this is something that he always wanted to do. And he told a scouting director one day when we were having meetings prior to being drafted, all the clubs come in and talk to you. He told him that he looked at it like this. He said, if I wanted to be a doctor, he said, I would go to, I'd go to school to become a doctor. I'd go to med school, wherever it would be. If I wanted to be a lawyer, I'd go to law school. He said, I want to be a baseball player. So my path, I feel like I want to get it started, start in the minor leagues. And that was his, and he said that, and he didn't say a lot when he was a kid, but that was something that he said. And I looked at him, I said, all right, this is what you want to do, man. And he had a great backup plan. If it didn't work out, he's going to the University of Oklahoma. He was going to follow my 2 daughters that went there, my wife and myself. And, this was something that he had planned out, but when these kids start getting drafted and the money is in a pretty good spot, it's hard for them not to pursue what they want to do as far as their dreams.
Yeah.
Speaking of money,
like you said, a lot of things have changed.
Yes, absolutely.
And speaking of money, what was that contract that I saw your son just got?
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, he got a few shillings, a few extra. It was a good one there. Yeah.
What was it? 288 million? Is that
yeah.
what it is?
Yes. It's 11. It's 11 years. And then there's actually, it can go another 3 years after that, depending upon if the team wants to pick up some options, but it also has an opportunity for him to opt out 3 years prior to that. So it gives him a little bit of flexibility once he gets to, I think it's age 30. And so we'll see, but it was something that the Royals this past year made a commitment. They went out and they signed some guys, especially the starting staff and a couple other position players. And that's something that he wanted to see if they were willing to do that. And at first, there was a meeting that he met with the general manager and the owner, and these are some of the questions that they had to see if this is, where he, if we wanted to stay, because if not, they're in a marketplace where they really rely on their draft and they rely on players that they developed. They're not in the luxury of a New York, Boston, Chicago market where they can go out and spend at will. And so it ended up making sense, and we got the deal done, and he's a very happy young man.
Yeah, so he made almost as much as you did in your first year.
So when I was the third pick overall in the draft in 1985. So
right.
let me go back a little bit further. So that offer that I was offered in high school in the 7th round was $10,000 in 1982. And I'm telling you, I was going out the door, because 10 grand, I was going to buy that new Camaro, and I was set. I was good. So I was ready to go out the door. But that's when my dad grabbed me by the back of the head and said, "Wait a minute, So I end up, the fast forward 85. I go to Oklahoma. I'm the third pick overall, Rangers, and I got the most money in the draft that year, and I signed for $179,000. Right now, $179,000 is the 10th round money. So it's changed tremendously. My rookie year in 1986, the salary was $62,500. Wow. This year, I want to say it's $740,000. So obviously, inflation. I mean, those type of things. You got to factor into that. But still, these young guys are in a good spot. And
you're playing part of an agent now too, aren't you? I mean, right?
Yes, I've been doing that for my last year playing, Scott, was 2001 with the Diamondbacks, and then I got right into this right away. So this is my 23rd year doing this.
Good for you,
speaking
Bobby.
Of your last year with the Diamondbacks, and let me ask you this real fast, and then Scott, I really would love to hear your questions about the agent, because I think that's interesting. But you're one of the few players that got to walk away with your World Series ring and then call it a night. I mean, how wonderful a way to exit the game.
It was. I'll tell you a quick story. I played with Goose Gossage, Nolan Ryan, and when I was playing with them, one of the things that intrigued me was their ability to continue to play at a high level where they were at their age. And Nolan, 27 years he played, and his last year he's still throwing 95 miles an hour. Goose was still throwing in the 90s. And I asked both of those guys, I said, how do you know when it's time, man? I mean, what do you think about? And both of them gave me similar answers. Goose said, "I'm not leaving this game until they rip the uniform off my back." And Nolan was more or less, "I'm going to continue to go as long as I can, as hard as I can. I'm not going to just walk away where." And I thought about that, and I felt like, that's how I wanted to do it. I want to go out like that. So my last year, physically, I was falling apart. I mean, I tore my ligament my last year. And that's the one where they do the Tommy John. I tore it 40%. So I did not have the surgery. If I was younger, probably I would say 2-3 years younger, I probably would have had the surgery, rehabbed it, and try to continue. But I knew this was my 16th year. I've left it all out there. And so what I did is I rehabbed it and I came back. So my first start, which is in April, I blew out, and then I ended up coming back. I want to say it was probably the first week in August, finally got back. And in between that time, as I was rehabbing this, I had some issues with my shoulder. I was getting shots on my shoulder. So I knew I was at the end of the rope, and I knew that this was going to be it. And the team was fantastic. It was an incredible team. The talent was incredible. They were playing well, great group of guys. And I just wanted to get back to be a part of it. And I ended up coming back, and I was coming in out of the bullpen. And then I made about, I think, 4 or 5 starts in September. But for me to go out that way and to be with that group of guys, I couldn't have asked for a better. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you'd like to stay healthy the entire time, but just to be able to, I think I experienced postseason 2 other times in my career, once with Oakland, once with Texas. And to be able to do that, and the last guy I ever faced, I struck out. So, mm-hmm. I mean, I walked off the mound in the Game 6 of the World Series, I think, in the 8th inning. And so it was, I couldn't have asked for a better way.
Yeah, it's like a Hollywood ending.
it was nice. It really was. And then I've had all these surgeries, but it was all worth it.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, that's what you usually
Yeah,
hear. It was all worth it.
And didn't you get a World Series ring here last year, didn't you?
Yeah, that was with the Diamondbacks. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. The
2001.
Diamondbacks in Arizona.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what
so
I
you
thought.
walked off in the, what was it, the sixth inning, I think? With
Sixth inning. Yeah.
a
No, I'm
strikeout.
sorry. It was the eighth inning. Yeah, in Game 6.
Game 6, eighth inning.
Yes.
And yeah, strikeout, and yeah, it's a Hollywood inning.
So it was a good way to finish it up.
We'll talk about being an agent. You've been an agent longer than you played ball.
Yes.
That's amazing that you've been as successful as you have been, obviously as a player, but now after that as an agent. What's been the best part? And obviously helping your son and what have you. But what have you enjoyed most about that post baseball career where you're still involved very, very much, and you get a chance to see some of the newer players, but now you're in a much different role.
Yeah, it was one of those things, to be honest, that I really, when I was done in 2001, my intentions were just to kind of take it easy for a while and not really do anything. I knew I was going to end up doing something. I didn't know what path that was going to be. But as far as getting back into baseball, that wasn't something that I really thought of. I've had other guys that had taken that route. They got back in with teams doing things like that as far as trying to get into the front office or the coaching aspect of it. But my mentality was I was just going to take it easy. And then the people that represented me, Alan Nero and Scott Pacino, approached me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought of, doing what we do?" And I said, I don't even know where to start with that. And he said, "Well, we don't really have that guy that has played the game and gone on and to have the career that you had, come back kind of 180 and help these kids and go out and identify the talent and be a guy that can, help them with their journey as we helped you with yours." And so I was intrigued. So I went out to spring training and sat in on a couple meetings just to kind of see what else they did and what else was behind it. And at the time, I had a place up at the Cape in Mashpee at New Seabury, and I had a house there. And they said, "Listen, just go up there, enjoy this year, hang out with your family, relax. But maybe you can go to some of the Cape Cod League games, go down there, identify some of the talent, and see what you think." And I ended up doing that. I was going to games probably 4 nights a week, going out there and just watching. Letting my eyes do the work. And I ended up getting a couple guys out of there for the following year draft in 2003. One of the guys made it to the big leagues, pitched for about 10 years. His name was Scott Baker. And from that point on, it was one of these things where I really started enjoying this and being able to go out and, I obviously identify the talent, and then you meet with the family and try to get them to let them be you're an advisor until they actually sign. And then work with them and help them get through the minor leagues. And then when you ultimately get that phone call that they've been called up to the big leagues, it's as one of your own kids, because you've been with them, you've worked with them, the families, you get to know them, and then you get to go to that ballpark, whatever ballpark that is that they get called up and see them make that journey to the big leagues. It's awesome.
So is that part of your job now, going to these minor league games and locating?
I will, it's a lot of the amateur stuff, a lot of high school games, college games, things like that. And I try to focus, I do have a lot of pitchers. It's kind of, I feel that I kind of have a little bit of a niche with the pitchers. I've been through so many things as far as I can tell them, the training regiments and things like that. And, how to recover from certain injuries and things like that, which has been beneficial for them as well.
So, Bobby, oftentimes, and this is, I've been told this, that the best predictor of a future MLB player is if their father has played Major League Baseball. So do you have any father-son duos where the dad and then you represent the son, or how many of that, exists in your world?
Yeah. Last year was my first guy, a guy that I played with the Rangers, John Russell. He was a catcher, and he actually went to Oklahoma, and then he ended up playing in the big leagues with the Phillies at first, and then the Rangers. And then he ended up managing the Pirates at the big league level. And then he ended up coaching with the Orioles. And he actually called me out of the blue about 3 years ago, and we started talking, and he goes, "Hey, my son's down here at the IMG Academy in Sarasota, Florida, and he was actually running this stuff, and he wanted to know if I would, have interest in meeting with him and talking to him." And it ended up working out. And this year his name is Stone Russell, and this past year he was drafted by the Kansas City Royals.
Oh.
So it's been every now and then you will get an ex-player or something like that, because of just what I've been through as a player, but also having a son. They feel that there's a comfort level, and they're trying to do the same thing. They want to see their son get to that point and all like that. So I think that it's been beneficial for me to go through it, and I can kind of give them the little ins and outs and things to do and not to do.
As a kid
I
growing
just
up.
have another question about minor leagues. So when my kids were growing up, I have 2 daughters. So my husband and I all 4 of us are baseball fanatics. And so when my husband and I would take the kids out of town on vacations, no matter what we were doing, if it was Disneyland or camping or whatever, we always found a baseball game. And so if we weren't in a major league town, we would go to minor league. And you mentioned Cape Cod. There was this one stadium up in Rhode Island. That was the strangest looking stadium I'd ever seen, but we'd go to all these baseball games all over the country. So do you have any favorite minor league ballparks that are just quirky and fun, or anything about them? You've probably seen ballparks all over the country.
Yeah. The Cape Cod League one, for example, they use all high school fields up there. So all the kids that are playing now, that's the top college talent in the country that go up there and play in the summer. So all those fields up there are high school fields. So they do a pretty good job in getting them ready. That's like you said, what you did with your family, that's what a lot of people do up there, is that they'll go to the beach all day, go have dinner, and then night, the entertainment is going to a Cape Cod League, and then, go and crushing a couple lobster rolls or whatever it may be, and all that type of stuff.
Sounds good.
But yeah, it's great all over. But there's a few minor league ballparks that I played in that no longer exist. That tells you how long ago I played in some of these parks. But now for me, I get to go to a lot of these parks that I would have never gone to because of going to see my players. And some of these places are beautiful. Mm-hmm. Most of these AAA facilities, the one in Las Vegas is probably one of the best parks I've ever been to. The only problem is it's 107 degrees at 7:30 at night when the games start. But that's a really nice ballpark. The one in Oklahoma City, the one down in Round Rock, the one in Corpus Christi that the Ryan family owns. A lot of those places, they do a really nice job as far as promoting them and giving people an opportunity to see these young players play and that are going to be future big leaguers.
You're talking about all these future big leaguers. How about you as a kid, Bobby? Growing up, who are your heroes? Who are the players that you look up to that, boy, someday I'd love to be a Major League Baseball player, and boy, he's my guy?
Well, growing up in New England, and especially Massachusetts, Scott, I followed the Red Sox, and right. I go back to I remember Red Sox had a shortstop. I played shortstop in high school and pitched. Rick Burleson, he was a shortstop, but Dwight Evans. I remember watching Carlton Fisk, Carl Yastrzemski. Just that team in general. Because when you were a kid, that's all you really watched was the Red Sox when they were on. They have the game of the week. I think it was on Saturday, and you got to see other teams, but you really didn't know a lot of guys, and your focus was that team. That's how I think that's how you became really a big fan, a true fan. That wasn't, where you're watching, like now you got the MLB network and right. You buy the package and you can watch any game you want throughout the country. So kids can be growing up in a certain area, but be a Fernando Tatis Jr. fan because they like the way he plays out in San Diego. So, but for me, it was that group, I think, of Red Sox, and then I think the one thing that became surreal for me is that growing up a Red Sox fan and then getting to the big leagues, and now all of a sudden there was guys that I grew up watching and now I'm facing. I remember facing Jim Rice, Dwight Evans, Rick Burleson, the same guys I was talking about, and I was like, "Holy cow, I'm doing this." And that's something that when you do it at first, especially when you've idolized people, and now you got to realize you got to take that away and realize that you got a job to do.
Do
How
you
about
think you, oh, sorry,
Go
Scott.
ahead. No, Marnie, jump in.
Well, do you think that you have more, let's just say, butterflies watching your son, or when you were actually out there playing yourself? Like, where do you feel? I mean, what is it?
I think as when I was playing, I think there was certain games, certain things. Like the first time I faced in spring training, first guy I ever faced in a big league spring training camp was George Brett, and they just won the World Series. And so once I got him out, I was behind in the count 2-0. I remember this. It's crazy. People can remember these things, but I was behind the count 2-0. He threw a fastball and he grounded out to second base. So I said, okay, I can do this. And then the next step was actually pitching in my first big league game. That one, once you face that one hitter. And then I think, your first playoff game, things like that, you feel like that. But people ask me that a lot. And I think if my son was a pitcher, I think I'd be walking up and down the aisles of every stadium in America every time he was pitching. But he's not. So he's a hitter. And so he does that so well. And he goes out and plays his position so well that I'm not saying I'm relaxed, but I just feel a lot more comfortable with him doing what he's doing rather than pitching, because you expect as an ex-pitcher for your son to go out there and perform well and do it right all the time. I mean, but as a hitter, it's such a hard thing to do. I mean, 30% success rate, you're one of the best in the world. And it's the only job that you can really say that type of stuff. If you're a pitcher and you're only getting it done 3 out of 10 times, you're not going to be around too long. And so I think that I'm fortunate that I've been able to watch him do his thing as a position player. So I would definitely say I'm probably, for me, a couple of things I went through pitching, I probably was a little bit more anxious, but watching him now, if he gets to that home run derby he's going to be in on Monday, I just want him to hit one home run early so I can just take a deep breath and go, all right, you hit one, man. That's good. And then have a big relief.
What's the best information you shared with him as a dad? I just had a couple of quick questions here. As a dad growing, watching him grow up, were there 2 or 3 things that you said, certainly to baseball, but just as a human being, just to what was going to help him be a good player, be committed to his teammates, just be the champion that you were and that he wants to be?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I said to him is that my dad said to me that when I first got to the big leagues and started, having some success, he said, just never forget where you came from. And you put your pants on just like everybody else in this world. Mm-hmm. And that's something that he's always done. He's always been an even-keeled kid. He doesn't get too excited. He doesn't get too high. When things are going well and things are going low, you can't. And that's something that I had a tough time dealing with for me personally, because when I had a bad outing, when I was pitching, it took me a day or 2 to get over it. And then I'd come home and I wasn't a good, I should have been better than what I was. I just wasn't like the person that he is. He can go to a game, a big league game. He can go 3 for 4 with a home run, a double, come out, and he's the same guy that he was when you saw him the day before. If he comes out and he goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts and makes a bad play in the field, he's the same guy as he was before. For me, I let it bother me too much. And that's something that I worked on. And, eventually you get over it after a while once you do it enough. But that was something that I wish I was able to do. And he showed me a lot by doing that. And, he's just a good kid. He's a kid that just, he wants to appease his family. He's got 3 sisters, so he technically has 4 mothers. And they've all had their part. And like I tell everybody, I said, it really does take a village. And, it's just, I think that we've always been able to communicate. And I've been there from the beginning where my girls, I was still playing. So I was traveling a lot. I was missing things, and my wife did an incredible job raising them. But I was able to be there for him when we were able to, do the travel ball and things like that, which I think helped out tremendously.
Well, the other question I wanted to quickly get in here was on Monday night, you're going to see your son, as you said, just looking for that home run, and wouldn't it be something if he won that? But above that, your legacy, Bobby, what you've done, of course, you and your wife with your son and with just your family, but what about your legacy? joining the Rangers back in, was it 1986? I think it was. I mean, and here we are almost 40 years later. Just what an incredible legacy. You went from baseball into the agency, into, whatever. What comes to mind? How do you want to be remembered?
For me, Scott, and it's always been about this. There's no doubt in my mind. The only thing that I wanted to be was a good teammate. I wanted to let guys know that I had their backs every time I played with them. I felt like I would give them everything I had. I mean, and that's something that we took a lot of pride in as far as when we were pitching. I made a reference earlier, old school, new school, but back in the day, it was a badge of honor for you to go out, throw 7, 8, 9 innings a night. And that was something that I took a lot of pride in. I always wanted to make sure that I took the ball every 5 days when I was asked to do that, and pull for my teammates. And I think that's something that I think that as I run into guys that I played with down the road, it's something that I think we talk about all the time. And for me, that was important. The wins and that type of stuff, as far as the team accomplishments, that's what I cared about. I mean, and I was fortunate to be a part of the 96 first time the Rangers won a division in 1996. That was something special. And that group of guys was something special. And the team that I played on that won the World Series in 01, to be a part of that. But that's the things that I took about. I don't, wins, strikeouts, whatever it may be, that's great. But at the end of the day, it was about what we did as a team and how I went out there and hopefully affected maybe a younger guy to where I could, at least he could see how I went about my business, how I worked and did that type of stuff.
Good. Girls, we got about 3 minutes. Anybody got a final question?
Well, I just have a quick question. You mentioned your daughters. Were they athletes too?
My daughters, they all cheered competitively. So they did that. 2 of them ended up going on to Oklahoma and do that. They cheered there. One of them played softball. They all ran track. Mm-hmm. And so they did have, they all were pretty athletic growing up. And the craziest story, and there's not enough time for it, but they all ended up marrying baseball players, and all 3 of my son-in-laws have played in the big leagues.
Wow.
What a great history. That's unbelievable. Yeah. That's unbelievable. Marnie, you got a final question for Bobby?
Well, it's really more of a statement, what you were saying about your son and him just having a great attitude. While I don't know him, my boys are huge fans of your son. And so I think that he exudes that as he's playing the game. And so he definitely is collecting a lot of fans all over the country. So we'll be cheering for him on Monday night.
Thank you, Marnie. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, he is walking the walk for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
How many people are you going to have? How many families
rooting for him Monday night?
Yeah. How many folks? How many family folks? The girls giving you the thumbs up for Monday night. How many people are going to be in the stands?
I think we got about 25, and then my youngest daughter, her husband Cody, he's over in Japan playing. So she just came back for a couple of weeks and just flew back over. So she'll be watching it from Japan. So we'll have everybody kind of zoomed in there and watching it. So it should be a pretty good time for everybody.
That's phenomenal.
What a thrill. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. What about you going to go to the All-Star game on Tuesday?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're going to do that. We'll go to, we'll watch the Derby, and then Tuesday, I think everybody but the little kids are going to the game Tuesday. Yeah.
That's and when you see Arlington, of course, you've lived here in this area and never left here, so you've seen that all be built up, and now AT&T Stadium where the Cowboys are, the Rangers' new stadiums. I mean, I remember it was 94, I think, was the year that they got the new stadium, and everybody went, wow, Arlington Stadium. What happened to Arlington? And now look, it's incredible. And of course, you've also got the Medal of Honor Museum. The National Medal of Honor Museum is going to be there.
That's beautiful. That's going to be beautiful.
It's incredible as we honor all of our military, and that's where that Hall of Fame of sorts is going to be. So it really is something. 1 minute. Any closing thoughts from Bobby Witt?
Not a lot, man. It's just great to see you. I mean, I haven't seen you in a while, and thank you for letting me, be a part of this. And hopefully I gave some insight to somebody that didn't know something about me or my son, and hopefully it was a good show.
Well, it was a great show, and that was because of you, Bobby. But let me say something publicly, as I've said before. You and your wife are just special people, and what you've done with your children. We just heard about, where the girls are. We all certainly know about Bobby Jr. Let me salute you. And I had a chance to cover a lot of great ball players: baseball, football, basketball, hockey. The Olympics coming up. Gold medalists. But you know what? You're one of the best because you were not only a great athlete, but you're a great human being, and that's most important. So, Bobby Witt, we can't thank you enough. Just stay safe and stay well.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And we're pulling for Bobby Jr. on Monday night. In the meantime, for Marnie and Marjorie and Bobby Witt, I'm Scott saying so long till next time for Journey Through Sports and Life.